September 11th, 2001, 9:45 a.m. The White House is in chaos. A hijacked plane is believed to be heading straight for Washington, D.C. Secret Service agents grab Vice President Dick Cheney and rush him through the East Wing, down a staircase, and past a set of thick, blast-resistant doors. Inside, top officials, including National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, are already assembling in an underground command center. As the doors seal shut, the most powerful figures in the U.S. government are no longer in the White House we know. They are beneath it. And this isn't the first time a U.S. president has had to rely on this hidden sanctuary. What if I told you that beneath the most powerful house in the world lies a secret fortress designed to withstand nuclear attacks, terrorist threats, and even total governmental collapse? And yet, even past presidents rarely talk about it. Why? What is so secret about this underground bunker that even the leaders of the free world refuse to acknowledge its full extent? The White House is often portrayed as the heart of democracy, a place where world-changing decisions are made, policies are shaped, and history unfolds. But there's another side to it, one hidden from the public eye, one designed not for diplomacy, but for survival. Beneath the marble floors, chandeliers, and grand staircases, there exists a hardened emergency operations center, a place where presidents, vice presidents, and their top advisors retreat in the event of an imminent threat. This isn't just a panic room. This is an underground military-grade facility, equipped to function as a continuity of government command center, meaning that even if Washington, D.C. were to be attacked, the country's leadership could still operate from deep below the surface. It's called the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, or PEOC. The public first got a glimpse of this classified facility on September 11, 2001, when officials took refuge inside as hijacked planes crashed into the Pentagon and the Twin Towers. But the PEOC is far older than 9/11. It has existed for decades, built, expanded, and reinforced with every major war, every new security threat, and every terrifying possibility that keeps world leaders awake at night. And yet, despite being used in some of America's most pivotal moments, there are no official blueprints, no government press releases, and no full disclosure of what really exists beneath the White House. Why? Because what they've told us about this bunker is only the beginning. What little we do know about the White House bunker is already shocking. This underground facility is built to withstand the worst-case scenarios imaginable. Walls reinforced to endure nuclear explosions, independent air and water filtration systems that can operate even if the city above is toxic, direct communication lines to NORAD, the Pentagon, and Air Force One, ensuring instant military coordination, and the stockpiles of food, medical supplies, and essentials for extended lockdowns. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The White House bunker is rumored to be just the surface level of something much bigger. Former intelligence officials and military analysts suggest that beneath the White House lies a vast network of tunnels, connecting to other government facilities, hidden escape routes, and possibly even secret military bases. During the Obama administration, large-scale construction was seen around the White House. The official explanation? Infrastructure upgrades. But security experts believe this was actually an expansion of the underground bunker network. Then, in 2018, a sinkhole appeared on the White House lawn, triggering wild speculation. Was it just a routine maintenance issue, or had it exposed something the government didn't want us to see? If the White House bunker was just a simple emergency shelter, why does the government go to such extreme lengths to keep its details hidden? And most importantly, why is it still being expanded in peacetime? For decades, this bunker has been a silent witness to history. It has sheltered U.S. presidents in times of crisis, stood ready for nuclear war, and been on high alert during global conflicts. And yet, even those who have stepped inside say almost nothing about it. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, John F. Kennedy had nuclear evacuation plans in place, but the full details remain unknown. On September 11th, when the White House was evacuated, President George W. Bush wasn't even allowed to return immediately because the threat level was too high. In 2020, when President Trump was taken to the PEOC, the White House downplayed it, but security sources confirmed it was a real emergency protocol. So the question remains, what else is down there? How deep does this secret facility go? And if the White House has a bunker for survival, what exactly are they preparing for? We're only scratching the surface of one of the most secretive places in the United States. And as we move forward, we'll uncover how this bunker came to be, how it has evolved over the years, and what terrifying events pushed the US government to build it in the first place. But before we continue, don't forget to like and hit that bell icon for more such shocking revelations. Now let's shed some light on the origin of PEOC. On December 7, 1941, the world changed in an instant. As news of the attack on Pearl Harbor reached the White House, President Franklin D. Roosevelt knew the unthinkable had happened. The U.S. homeland was vulnerable. The images of smoldering battleships, burning aircraft, and thousands of casualties weren't just a wake-up call for military defense. They were a stark warning for Washington itself. What if the next attack was aimed at the nation's capital? At the time, the White House had no real protection against an aerial assault. There were no underground shelters, no hardened bunkers, and no secret escape routes. Just a historic residence sitting in plain sight, completely exposed. Roosevelt knew he had no choice. If the White House was a target, there had to be a way to protect the presidency. And so, the first underground bunker beneath the White House was born. FDR ordered construction to begin immediately. But secrecy was paramount. Americans couldn't know just how vulnerable their government was. Workers dug beneath the East Wing, reinforcing the underground structure with steel, concrete, and heavy blast doors. Officially, it was called an air raid shelter. But behind closed doors, it was much more. A last resort for the commander-in-chief in case enemy bombers reached Washington. And make no mistake, that fear was real. In 1942, German U-boats were spotted just miles off the East Coast, sinking American cargo ships. Hitler's military had developed long-range bombers capable of reaching the US mainland. The Japanese had launched surprise attacks before. What if the next one struck the capital? The White House bunker had to be built fast. But Roosevelt back then, instead of relying on the bunker, he created a backup plan, a secret presidential retreat hidden in the mountains of Maryland. He called it Shangri-La. You might know it by its modern name, Camp David. Most people think of Camp David as a peaceful retreat where presidents meet with world leaders. But it wasn't built for that purpose. It was a Cold War hideout before the Cold War even began. In case of an attack on Washington, Roosevelt planned to flee to Shangri-La, where military advisors and top officials could regroup. Unlike the White House bunker, it wasn't just a temporary shelter. It was a fully operational command post hidden deep in the woods. Why? Because FDR didn't trust that the underground bunker in the White House would be safe enough. And he wasn't wrong. During the height of World War II, military analysts warned that a direct bombing raid on Washington could destroy the White House and possibly compromise the bunker beneath it. In other words, the first White House bunker was already obsolete before the war was even over. World War II ended in 1945, but peace didn't last long. By the late 1940s, a new enemy emerged, the Soviet Union. And this time, the threat wasn't bombers flying over Washington. It was something far worse, nuclear weapons. When the Soviets successfully tested their first atomic bomb in 1949, America's entire defense strategy had to change overnight. For the first time in history, an enemy could wipe out Washington, D.C. in minutes. The White House bunker wasn't built for that kind of destruction. If a nuclear bomb hit nearby, the heat and shockwave would turn the East Wing into rubble. The White House needed something bigger, something deeper, something capable of surviving Armageddon. And so, as threats evolved, so did the need for a more sophisticated underground sanctuary. Now, the real test of the bunker was on September 11, 2001, when the world is in chaos. As smoke rises from the Twin Towers in New York, the Pentagon is burning, and Flight 93 is still unaccounted for, the White House faces an imminent threat. A hijacked plane, possibly targeting the Capitol or the White House itself, is heading for Washington, D.C. Inside the West Wing, Secret Service agents move fast. They grab Vice President Dick Cheney, firmly telling him, "Sir, we have to move." Before he can ask a question, he is rushed down the narrow hallway, past the East Wing, and deep into the White House bunker, the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, PEOC. First Lady Laura Bush, already in the White House, would later recall the sheer urgency of the moment. In her memoir, Spoken from the Heart, she described how she was hustled inside through steel doors that shut with a loud hiss, forming an airtight seal. The doors closed behind them, locking Washington's most powerful figures underground. The PEOC was not built for comfort, it was built for survival. But on September 11th, it was immediately clear that this aging bunker was not ready for a modern terror attack, as communication systems were outdated, security feeds lagged behind real-time events, and phone lines struggled to connect with key officials. As Vice President Cheney took his seat, military officers and advisors squeezed into the room, watching live feeds of the attacks on television screens. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice coordinated from inside, while White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card desperately tried to maintain contact with President George W. Bush, who was still airborne on Air Force One. According to Richard Clarke, a top counterterrorism official, Cheney was immediately briefed on the possibility of another hijacked plane heading toward Washington. "Sir, we need a decision. Do we shoot it down?" The vice president didn't hesitate. "Yes." Cheney later explained in an interview that he had no doubts about the order. If a plane was heading toward Washington, the only option was to bring it down before it reached the White House or Capitol. The order, however, came with complications. The military was still struggling to locate Flight 93, and confusion reigned as the attack unfolded in real time. Were there more planes? Was the White House next? And while top officials were scrambling to respond, another terrifying realization emerged. The White House bunker itself was not as secure as they had believed. For all its reinforced walls and blast-proof doors, the PEOC was shockingly outdated. Connectivity was weak. Cheney's calls to the Pentagon dropped multiple times. There was no real-time link to NORAD. Critical information about the hijacked planes was delayed, and the key security upgrades had been proposed years earlier, but never implemented. A report later revealed that the PEOC had been operating on old Cold War-era technology. Some officials inside that day later admitted that the poor communications and delays in information sharing had put the government at a dangerous disadvantage. Former White House counterterrorism official Richard Clarke stated, "We should have known better. The threat of hijacked planes being used as missiles had been talked about for years. But our systems, including the bunker, weren't built for this kind of attack." After September 11th, security upgrades were finally pushed forward. The bunker's technology, communication systems, and overall infrastructure were rapidly modernized. But the question remains, if the US government knew about the bunker's weaknesses before, why did they wait until a national crisis to fix them? The attacks on September 11th didn't just expose America's vulnerability to terrorism, they exposed a dangerous truth about its own emergency preparedness. And it left one lingering question. If another attack happened today, would the White House truly be ready? Years later, another incident on May 29, 2020. Protests erupt outside the White House following the death of George Floyd. Thousands gather in Lafayette Square, some holding signs, others chanting, while tensions with law enforcement rise. As night falls, the scene becomes more volatile. Fires break out, barriers are torn down, and clashes escalate between protesters and security forces. Inside the White House, Secret Service agents make a quick decision. President Donald Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and their son Barron are moved underground into the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, PEOC. For nearly an hour, the leader of the United States is inside the same bunker that once sheltered top officials during 9/11. But when news of the president's evacuation leaks, it sparks a major controversy. As soon as reports surfaced that Trump had been taken underground, social media erupted. The term "bunker boy" started trending on Twitter. Memes flooded the internet, mocking the president for retreating underground. Critics accused him of hiding instead of addressing the nation directly. Trump later downplayed the event, insisting that he had only visited the bunker for an inspection, not because of security concerns. However, Secret Service officials privately confirmed that it was a protective measure, not a routine check. The backlash was immediate. Political analysts described the move as one of the most embarrassing moments of his presidency, while others argued that any president would have taken similar precautions under the circumstances. Regardless of political stance, the event marked a rare moment in U.S. history, a sitting president being moved into the White House bunker due to civil unrest, not war. This 2020 protests showed that the White House bunker isn't just for wars or terrorist attacks. It's a tool used whenever security officials believe the president is at risk. But it also raised bigger questions.
How often has the White House bunker been used without public knowledge? What other security protocols exist that remain classified? And if a national emergency truly occurred, who else would have access to these shelters? One thing is certain, the White House bunker remains one of the most classified structures in the US, and its purpose more critical than ever. For decades, the Presidential Emergency Operations Center, PEOC, has remained one of the most classified structures in the United States. While its existence is known, the full extent of its capabilities remains a tightly guarded secret. What we do know, however, is enough to prove one thing. This is no ordinary bunker. The PEOC is more than just an underground shelter. It's a fully functional command center designed to keep the US government operational even under the worst conditions. Inside the PEOC, officials can conduct emergency operations with a long conference table lined with satellite phones, high-security communication systems, and encrypted data feeds. This setup allows instant connection to the Pentagon, NORAD, and Air Force One. Moreover, the bunker is designed to withstand nuclear blasts, chemical warfare, and biological threats. Independent air filtration systems prevent contamination, while thick reinforced concrete walls provide maximum structural integrity. Furthermore, reports indicate the PEOC is stocked with emergency food supplies, medical kits, and sleeping quarters, enough to support key officials for an extended lockdown. This means that in the event of a nuclear war, terrorist attack, or national crisis, the president and top officials could operate from beneath the White House without interruption. But that's just the beginning. Imagine a secure room where the President of the United States can launch nuclear strikes, all from a bunker beneath the White House. According to former military and intelligence sources, the PEOC is not just a shelter, it's a fully integrated military command post with direct access to the nuclear launch system. The President's nuclear launch codes, often carried in the infamous nuclear football, can be used from inside the PEOC. Secure satellite uplinks ensure instant communication with the nuclear command structure, allowing rapid response in case of an attack. In addition to this, the PEOC is said to be equipped with real-time intelligence monitoring systems, pulling information from military satellites, drone surveillance, and classified data centers. Also, some reports suggest that since September 11th, the bunker has been upgraded with AI-driven systems to assess security threats in real time, giving the president and military advisors a data-backed situational awareness tool. While these details remain heavily classified, one thing is clear. The PEOC isn't just a hideout, it's a place where life-altering decisions can be made. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the PEOC is its true depth. Some reports claim the bunker is over 1,000 feet underground, deeper than the highest yield nuclear bomb's blast radius. Other sources suggest the PEOC connects to an even deeper network of tunnels and secure facilities beneath Washington, D.C. If true, this would mean the White House has far more hidden layers than the public has been told. If the White House has a bunker we know about, could there be something even deeper? Could there be a second, more advanced bunker beneath the PEOC, one designed for extreme national security emergencies? Are there tunnels connecting the White House to secret locations like Camp David or Raven Rock? And if another crisis strikes, will we ever know the full extent of the government's underground survival plans? These are questions the government won't answer. But one thing is certain, what lies beneath the White House is far more than what they've told us. After everything we've uncovered, the PEOC, and the possibility of an entire underground network beneath Washington, D.C., one thing is clear, we still don't know the full story. The White House bunker system is one of the most classified elements of US security, and despite decades of speculation, critical questions remain unanswered, as what we still don't know is how deep does it go. The exact depth and size of the White House bunkers remain a mystery. Some reports suggest the PEOC is just 50 feet underground, built to survive even the most powerful nuclear blasts. If the deeper estimates are correct, that would mean the White House bunkers are among the most fortified underground structures in the world. Moreover, who gets in? In the event of a full-scale national emergency, access to the White House bunkers is strictly controlled. Obviously, the president, vice president, and top military officials are granted immediate entry. But what about members of Congress, cabinet members, their families? More importantly, what about the American public?
History has shown that in moments of national crisis, there is no plan for ordinary citizens. The US government has continuity strategies in place for its leaders, but not for the people they govern. Last but not the least, are there even more undisclosed locations? Beyond the PEOC, there is strong evidence that additional underground facilities exist beneath Washington, D.C. Leaked documents, declassified Cold War files, and satellite imagery suggest the presence of a network of tunnels linking the White House to the Pentagon, Capitol Building, and possibly even Camp David, a high-speed underground transport system for government officials, additional classified shelters deep beneath the city. If all of this is true, it means there is more to what we already know. The White House is more than just the seat of power. It's a fortress. The bunkers beneath it are designed to keep the most powerful people in the country safe from any crisis. But the truth about what lies beneath remains one of the most closely guarded secrets in American history. If these bunkers exist to protect the government during a crisis, do you think the public should know the full extent of what's underground, or is secrecy necessary for national security? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's see where you stand.